Hey guys, welcome back for part 2 of the Berthier M16 Cavalry Carbine. So after making the first video, I started tinkering around with this thing and having a look at it before I wanted to take it out to the 200-yard line. So there's a couple oddities with this carbine. Now remember, this was made back in World War I, so times were definitely different, economies were different, and obviously France was a different place, they manufactured in different ways. This was still fairly new technology at the time. So smokeless powder was maybe 30 years old at this point, and the French were still developing their smokeless powder cartridges just like every other world power was. And we're going to talk a little bit about the 8mm Lebel cartridge and the stripper clips that they go into in a little bit. But a couple things with the rifle that I wanted to discuss. So first and foremost, this thing booted. Like you saw in the first part, this thing booted the crap out of me. Now I noticed when I was trying to do a tripod hold where I hold it loosely like this, due to the recoil, it was booting me backwards. It was jarring the tripod loose. That wasn't working out. So a good solid hold like this seemed to work out the best. So that may have played some part in accuracy issues. Now another thing I wanted to examine was the bore itself. The bore is kind of rough. Have a look at this. Yeah, not too pretty, huh? Now a couple other things that I noticed about the carbine. This has a screw together bolt. That's right. It's actually held together by a darn screw. You have to unscrew it to take this thing out. So I've never seen anything like this before. And one thing I did notice is the screw would come jarred loose. And right now you can see that I'm just taking it out right now with my fingers. And you can pull the screw out. So, and you can pull the bolt out, pull it up and out, and it's going to come out separately. So the actual main body is going to be there, and then the actual head of the bolt is going to be completely separate. It's a very peculiar design. I've never seen anything like this, but I guess at the time it worked for them. Another thing that I noticed, some of my M-block clips are not in the best of shape. These things are well over 100 years old, so some of them work better than the other ones. It is what it is. They're cheap pot metal clips meant to be disposed of. So one, it's miraculous they lasted this long, and two, that they're still working. So all in all, I'm still pretty happy that I have them to work with. Now the 8mm Lebel is actually a pretty stout little cartridge. This is a mil-spec 200 grain pill, jacketed, and you'll notice that these cartridges are all rimmed, and there's a reason for that. Now these M-block clips for the Berthier are pretty simple. Now they're not like charger clips like you have with an Enfield, but these are actually closer to what a lot of people are familiar with, the Garand, that they get charged directly into the rifle, and you'll see that. Now the thing about this is they can be kind of finicky. So here's the empty M-block clip right here. And when you go to load these, you'll notice that it is rimmed and there's a slot right here, and you got to make sure that you fit the rim into the slot. Now just like I was talking about with the Enfield, you got to load those up a certain way to prevent rim lock. Well, with these ones, if you don't put the rim down in that little groove right there, they'll actually spit out from the elevator inside the rifle, and it'd be very frustrating and you look kind of foolish at the same time. So you got to make sure that you load it correctly. Now they have a lot of play in them. Obviously this only has 2 rounds in it, so it's going to have play. But you'll want to have them nice and tight, just like this. Now you don't want to have them sitting up like this, or they're just going to spit out at you. So that's just a couple of the odd duck things that I noticed. No long historical lectures this time. Let's just get out there to the firing line. Alright guys, so we're here at the 200, and you'll notice that I'm filming on a different day. Well, basically, I ran out of sunlight and the mosquitoes were killing me, so here we are. We're going for the 200 today. So, the plate is set out there, it's hanging pretty good. I got my stripper clips ready to go, so let's do this thing. So at 100 yards, I noticed I had a tendency of drifting to the right. So I'm going to aim center mass and to the left slightly. So, let's see how she does. Hit. Now a little bit further rangers, it's kind of hard to see with that big front sight. It's not very good for fine aiming. I'm having some trouble telling if I'm actually making some hits. That's a hit. All right. And here we have it at the 200. So from what I can tell, 1, 2, maybe 3, 4, 5, maybe 6, 7, 8, I think. But shot cam's gonna have the proof in the pudding on that one. I know I missed quite a few of them, but the front sight is pretty thick, and making sure that I got the correct zero on this thing, it's not terribly a challenge. So sometimes I would aim straight center mass and I'd get a good ding. Sometimes it wouldn't. So sometimes when I compensated to the left, I'd get a good solid ding. So getting kind of fair accuracy out of this thing. So I believe I went through 4 stripper clips, and this is the result. So close to 50%. Now obviously part of that's me getting used to the rifle, trying to figure out what a good zero is on this thing, but we're still getting dings at 200. So whoop-de-doo. Okay, this is a World War I rifle with a big 8mm Lebel. 200 is chicken scratch. Well, why did I do the ranges that we did, the 50, 100, and 200? Well, obviously it's because it's what I got to work with. But another interesting thing with this being a World War I rifle, we're dealing with trench warfare at the time. So your average range was between 50 to 200 yards. So usually no man's land was about 200 to 250 yards, something like that. But there were cases where trenches were only 50 yards apart. So at practical ranges, that's kind of what we're looking at right there. So for a cavalry carbine at this relatively short range of 200 yards, it's not that bad. You're going to hit minute a man, no problem. This is only a 3/4 size man target anyway. So if I can ding this, or at least get close to dinging it, you're going to hit maybe a mass of guys down there or whatever you're trying to hit. So let's put a little bit of realism to this thing. So in World War I, they were still using archaic logic and tactics. So at the time, they were still using horse cavalrymen, hence this right here. So at the beginning of the war, it was pretty useful. They could get around quickly, they could do reconnaissance, move in pretty quick, get some strikes in on enemy trenches, and get out of there. But as the war progressed, they started to learn horses were very susceptible to shrapnel wounds, machine gun fire, etc., 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 till eventually the horses were pushed back into the rear with the gear, mainly drawing supplies or artillery pieces, things of that nature. Now, I sold my horses years ago, but today, just for the demo, I brought my iron horse. Now he's sitting there, he's manning the machine gun, waiting for his ammunition supply to come in, and you just happen to be on patrol nearby, and you see his smiling mug about 200 yards out in the other trench, waiting to ambush your men. Let's see if we can take him out before he can get that machine gun up. looks like we got him. We stopped the machine gun attack. And I think that old Private Klattersteig has had better days. Let's have a look at that big smile of his now. Oh, it don't look like he's smiling now, is it? Nope, right there in the bean. Poor bugger. Alright guys, well I hope you enjoyed that. It was a lot of fun. So we did the 50, 100, 200 yards practical ranges, trench ranges actually, considering this was World War I cavalry. And had a little bit of fun with the tractor too. I haven't taken that thing out in a while. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time.